Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you guys are having a great Friday, had a great week. This is Sylum Rants podcast, and we're going to go over last week's fight card. We're going to talk about some drama between a commentator and a ref. We're going to talk about some stuff happening in my life. I'm probably going to cover some housekeeping notes, going to cover some stuff in the beginning. So let's start off with, first of all, thank you to Dustin, Sean, and Eli for giving me words of encouragement and support. I wouldn't be doing this episode if it wasn't for you guys. Obviously, it's Friday. I wasn't going to do today's episode. I don't want to be negative, guys. This is not why I do this podcast. The last one was a bummer. Last episode, I was just obviously, man. This COVID is it's not easy. It plateaued my life pretty hard, and I don't feel like there's much progression going on in my life, um, in a personal sense, right? But on the upside is I have this podcast, and I was letting this bullshit get to me and whatever, and I just need to just keep pumping out these podcasts. I'm watching the fights. I'm writing notes like if I'm still doing like 2 podcasts a week, but I'm not physically doing it. But there's no excuse for that. I should be definitely on top of doing these, and I'm just glad to be recording right now because it was uh it was getting dark there for a moment. I didn't think I was gonna continue. Eh, you know, if you've heard me enough, I bitch a lot. So um, there's that me bitching. But hey, I'm recording now. I'm happy. I feel cheerful, and again, thank you one more time to Dustin, Sean, and Eli. I am just grateful for you guys, for the great words of encouragement and support. And if you guys don't hear this episode, well, you won't hear my shout out, but you know, thanks. Yeah, I would use your username handles on on social media, but I feel like it should be more personal. I should say your first names. Um, yeah. So it's Friday, right? So we have the weekend coming up, which is good. And yeah, before I move on to other things, I want to go over this last weekend's fight card. Yeah. So, well, yeah. So a housekeeping note is I'm having an intro being created for this podcast, which I'm excited for. I'm really excited for. I'm having a buddy of mine that he's a music producer type dude. He's gonna make me an intro, and I'm excited. Hopefully, you guys like it. If you guys know, if any of you guys are talented in music and you guys want to put maybe an outro on this or something, or maybe make an intro that would be better than the one that he's making, go right ahead. I totally love hearing creative things coming from people, and I'm totally down to share it. So yeah, let's cover the fight card this weekend. It was a good fight card. It was long. It was a fight night, and it was so long. It took forever. Um, yeah. So let's start off with Chizaev. Chimaev. 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 Okay. I could have sworn this guy came from like Habib's camp. If you just look at him, he has like the whole beard without the mustache going on, and has a very wrestling heavy base with the wrist rides and the just that it looks like Habib, like the Dagestani wrestling, hold you down, beat you up type of style. And he comes from Alexander Gustafson's gym. Wow, I'm just everywhere. Sorry about that. But yeah, he comes from Gustafson's gym, which is really surprising to a degree because Gustafson has good wrestling. So I guess their gym has a good wrestling program, which is very interesting because they're in Sweden, and you wouldn't put Sweden and wrestling together. You wouldn't really think that would be a great combination, right? A common combination. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have a great wrestling history and I don't know about. I am pretty ignorant in that sense. But yeah, so I think this guy can be the future here. He has he has almost more devastating ground and pound than Habib in certain ways. That again, that wrist right that he does, and being able to control your posting hand, so you can't wall walk and you can't come up, you can't get up to a post. If you get up to a post, it's actually worse for you. And I'm just excited to see him develop this more and go up in the rankings. He fought twice, and I believe he got hit once in both fights combined. I don't think he got hit against I have his name here, against McKee. I don't think he hit him once. I don't think McKee hit him once. And that is definitely something to this guy's a prospect. We don't want to rush him either. The UFC has this thing where they rush people, especially someone with his style. I feel like they're gonna really rush him because with a striker, I feel like they take their time with strikers because strikers need time to develop grappling. Grappling takes a while to develop, so you can easily derail a striker with a good wrestler. But someone like him that can cover distance well and can mitigate strikes and can really implement their game plan with minimal damage, they tend to really push these guys. And I can really see I said that, but they pushed Alessania pretty fast, but I think that's also Atasanya's doing. He pushed himself out there and he fought a lot. Adesanya fought a lot in his come up. I think it took him, I think he said like 13 months or something to go from his first fight to being a champion. I could be totally wrong here, totally wrong, but I remember it was a very short run to the championship, and he did that pretty well, obviously, because now Adesanya is champion. Paul Craig with the Great Triangle. He did just a normal overhook, old school overhook, and grabbing the wrist, pinning it to the sternum area, and going for the triangle. It was a good triangle. He has long legs, so when you have long legs like that, triangles are so easy. Life is so easy when it comes to triangles if you have long legs. He didn't have to. So, for example, if I go for a triangle, all right, imagine when you go for a triangle, you stuff in the arm. You have to bring the same side leg over that arm, over the shoulder, right? And then from there, you lock in your legs. So let's say if I'm bringing my right leg over, so that's the one that's going back of the head, clearing that arm, and my left leg is the one cinching up. I believe there's actually the sides he had it to. And your left leg is cinching up. You actually don't want to be in front of the person, and you don't want your left leg, the one that's locked over your right leg, you don't want it pointing out in the direction that their like butt is facing. You see most triangles done this way, and then people pull on the head from here. They clear the arm, bring the arm to the other side, and they pull down the head. The way you actually want to do triangles, this is not always the case. Again, if you have long legs, you can do whatever you want in a triangle. But for the most part, you actually want your left leg to face the same direction your right leg is facing. And you're like, well, I'm going to break my knee. How do I do that? How do I get my left leg, the one that's cinching over and locking in the triangle, how do I make that left leg face the same side my right leg is facing? The way you do that is with your right hand, you either you underhook the leg, which is the strongest option, or you underhook the armpit, their arm, and you kind of knee pivot. A knee pivot is when your left leg, that knee, pinches against the shoulder and you pivot. So essentially you're going to create a right angle with your body and their body. So you should like a capital L position. So you turn at an angle and you do that by grabbing their leg so you have a post there. Well, not just a post, but you have something to pull on and it doesn't allow them to stand up. And if you can get that angle and both of your legs are in line with each other facing the same direction and you're at a complete 90 degree angle, the pressure of your triangle is no longer a side to side compression. Most people, when they do triangles, they pinch their knees together and they pull the head down. This triangle is more of a kick and pull type motion. What you're doing is now your right leg is stomping on like a pedal, right? It's stomping, and your left leg is you're bringing your knee towards you. So you're pushing their head towards your right leg, and then you flare that left leg out even more so the knee's rotating on the neck. This is really hard to try to visualize, but all you got to think about is a great triangle is when both legs are facing the same direction and you have a complete right angle on your opponent. So you're facing and you're looking at their ear, their left ear. That's a perfect triangle. He didn't need to really do that. He got a bit of an angle. The angle is pretty good. I'm not sure if he underhooked the leg, but he did get a pretty decent angle. He just didn't flare that leg, and he didn't need to. I believe he just pulled down the head and he got it. And yeah, so Carlos Esparza fight was good. I'm not gonna break that one down. The Fabricio Verdoom fight, that was interesting. That was interesting. I really, really, really had Alexander Gustafsson winning this, and the reason why is because Gustafsson he has amazing wrestling. He took down John Jones and he stuffed John Jones takedowns. He has great wrestling. It's up there as he has one of the best wrestling. It's kind of crazy how good his wrestling is. And I think against DC he also stuffed all his takedowns. I could be wrong here, but I remember him doing really well against DC also in terms of takedown defense. So when Verdoom was going for his double leg, I believe he went for double or single, and Gustafsson just stuffed the takedown right away. He cross-faced, overhooked. It was amazing takedown defense, and he essentially did stop the takedown. And I was like, man, this is going to be really bad for Verdoom. He's getting older. Gustafsson has that long reach. He's super fast for the weight class. He's going to just run circles around him, you know? And that's not the case. Verdoom ended up getting a back body lock. Right away, Alexander Gustafsson was just stripping away the hands, not letting him get a good like gable grip together around his waist. And then he went for like this trip. Verdoom went for this trip and he made Gustafsson fall face forward, which for a jiu-jitsu guy is actually better. You fall face forward, you're on all fours. Well, now I can get your back. He hops for the back, couldn't get it, and he goes for a belly down swim move type armbar. A swim move armbar is, imagine you have someone's back and they're in turtle. They're in like referee position in wrestling. They're on all fours, right? Like they're doggy walking, right? Like, or baby crawling. I don't know why I said dog walking. I thought of me playing playing as a dog when I was a kid. I was really weird when my cousin. I had this girl cousin growing up, and we would pretend to be dogs, and we would get like bowls and put like milk in it or water, and we would like drink from it. I was a really really weird kid, and played a lot of make believe. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So he did like a front trip. Imagine, yeah. So Gustafsson was on turtle, and imagine Verdoom. What swim move is? Sorry, I'm like saying names for no reason. I'm not giving you any details here. A swim move is essentially going for an armbar from the back. Essentially, right? It's when someone's in turtle position, and if I'm attacking your right arm, so imagine they're in turtle and you're attacking their right arm. What you're doing is your head is kind of posted on the ground, and you want your left shin to go behind their head, and you do kind of like a forward roll on your left shoulder. You grab their feet, you pull it, you kick behind their head with your shin, and you make them do a forward roll. And from there, they're going to be on their back, and then you can attack the armbar better. A good rule for arm bars is you never finish arm bars on your back. John Danaher talks about this. If you guys want to know actually pretty much how Verdoom set up this armbar, look at John Danaher's DVD. He has the best armbar DVD out there. His DVDs in general are the best out there. He's revolutionizing the sport. He's evolving it. It's crazy. So yeah, so a good rule of thumb is you never finish the armbar when someone is on top of you. You always want to finish them when they're in supine position, when they're on their back. Because you want gravity on your side. You don't want them to have stacking ability, pull out ability. You don't want them to have turning ability. In the supine position, they have turning ability for hitchhiker escapes and corkscrew escapes, but that's easily countered by grabbing the elbow and making sure the elbow is off the center line. Now, right away, what Verdoom did was he had like a swim move style armbar. He had an armbar in a turtle position, which Gustafsson messed up by staying there. Verdoom didn't have the arm lock completely in place correctly. Actually, his leg, I don't believe his legs were in the proper place yet. And I think Gustafsson kind of freaked out and paused there to think about what he should do. And that's the worst thing to do to a high level jiu-jitsu guy. You want to know how to be a high level jiu-jitsu guy? You just keep moving. You keep moving, you keep using your athleticism, and you keep moving. And that's it. You slip out, you move, you spaz, and use your athleticism to get out. Because with these guys, if you give a chance to let Verdoom think about what he's going to do next, you're not going to win. You can't let a high level jiu-jitsu guy think. That's literally what they're doing. You have to put a lot of pressure and a lot of athleticism into what you're doing. Most jiu-jitsu guys aren't very athletic. They're very technique dependent. You need to be very technique dependent to win worlds. You can't win with just pure athleticism. Yes, you can. If you're athletic and technical, that's good. But you need to be very technical, especially in gi jiu-jitsu. So jiu-jitsu guys develop crazy technique, and Verdoom has his accolades are crazy. He's a jiu-jitsu gi world champion. He's the ADCC world champion. You can't just let him think about technique. You have to move. And Gustafsson, he just stayed there. He just chilled there. He was like, I'm just gonna, see what I do next. And so what Verdoom did was, instead of going for a swim move, he did like a toss, which is a reverse swim move essentially. Instead of making him do a forward roll, Verdoom faces the other way and kind of, instead of putting pressure on the head and making them do a forward roll, you put your leg over the face and you make them like sit to their butt, like to their back. You make them like go backwards, which is a reaction you do when you're going for a swim move and they put their head up, right? They know you're going to go for a swim move, so they don't want you to put your shin behind their head, so they put their head up, and boom, you get a cross face with the leg, and then you pop the other way. And from there, it was just game over. Verdoom went for what John Danaher calls a cross chest position, which is essentially doing an Americana. And if you don't know what an Americana is a figure four lock. It's essentially a 90-degree angle with the hand. How can I put that? Your palm facing up at a 90-degree angle. Like imagine you're like flexing your arm. It's like that, but your palm facing upwards, and from there you bring the elbow to the ribs and you pop the elbow up, and it will break your shoulder and it will break your elbow. If you don't know what Americana is, just do a quick Google search, go on YouTube, look at a tutorial, and what you want to do is essentially get an Americana grip across your chest. And the reason why is because when someone can bring their chest, they could bring their arm, their hand to their chest, right? You're really strong there. You're hugging your arm essentially, and you're using your biceps and your chest to keep your grip together. Now, if you want to separate the hands, if you bring that arm you're attacking across their chest, like you're doing an Americana, now you're making them use their shoulder cuff, their rotator cuff muscles, to hold their arm into place, and that is not a strong position. It's kind of like doing arm wrestling in a way where you're not in a good position, and there's no way you're going to hold onto your grip. So Verdoom essentially does a cross chest position. He hugs his own arm, and he falls to his, I believe, his left. He falls on the same side that Alexander Gustafsson's. It is the same side his head is on. Wow, I struggled to say that. You want to fall on the same side that their head is on. The reason why is you want to put all that pressure on that wrist, essentially, on that arm. So you break that grip, and then from there you line back up so that you're more at a 90-degree angle with them. If you notice, 90-degree angles are very important in jiu-jitsu, and that's something we'll go over in the future video. I can make a breakdown on that. And yeah, so he got the 90-degree angle. And from there, what was interesting is Verdoom, first of all, had the wrong leg crossed over. So when you have an armbar, you want to cross your legs when you're controlling. So there's many phases to an armbar. There's the entry phase, there's the control phase, there's the separation phase, and the breaking phase. The entry phase is entering the armbar, which is what you saw Verdoom do. He was entering into the armbar when he grabbed the arm. Then the control phase is when you hold them in place, and usually they have a grip together, and you're getting your grips together to break their grip. And once you go for breaking the grip, that's a separation phase because you're separating their hands. And then there's the breaking phase, which you break the arm. And in the control phase, in the phase that their grips are together, and you have the armbar, but their hands are still together, so it's still dicey there. At that point, you want to cross your ankles. And the reason why is because you don't want. Imagine someone's going for an armbar on you, and you have your hands together. Your arm that's not being attacked, that elbow can go under their leg, and you can essentially start to peel their legs off on either direction. You can peel it off with your own hands, the one that's over your face, or you can use your elbow to peel off the other one. And if you can do that, then your legs can grab the person's leg because you're feeding it with your elbow. Again, I would have to show a video of this. And that's why you cross your ankles, because you don't want them to be able to use their elbow to peel your legs off. Because your legs are that's what's controlling their body. Your arms are just trying to break the grip. That's what an armbar is. And then eventually your legs become a breaking point, which is the fulcrum later on at the breaking phase. Now, what Verdoom did was he crossed his legs the wrong way. He crossed his legs, the cross-face leg, the leg that was over the face, he brought it on top of the other leg that's over the body. And the problem with that is that you have a lot of space now between their face and your leg. And then they can start peeling off that leg. But he did such a good job breaking the grips and everything and moving and transitioning between all the phases that he quickly adjusted his legs. And then he crossed the other leg over. He crossed a leg that was over the body, over the cross-facing leg. The cross-facing leg is the one that's over the face. And then he didn't pinch his knees. So normally in the control phase, you want your ankles crossed. You want to keep them there. You don't want them to slip their elbow out. You don't want them to move. But then once you go for the breaking phase, once the arms are completely separated, their escape routes are different. That elbow that you're trying to control, it doesn't play a factor anymore because their grips aren't together. So so now what you essentially want to do is break the arm. So you need to pinch your knees and make sure they're, usually when people do arm bars, they usually bring the arm to, like their hand to your chest, and you bring your hips up. The real good way to do an arm bar is actually not to bring it straight across like your groin area, like straight across your belly button to your chest. You actually want to go across your hip line. Because think about it, if you go across your hip line, their pinky, you can bring their pinky all the way down to the mat. And think about all those extra inches of braking power you have. Now, if you raise your knee even higher, the same side, let's say if I'm attacking his right arm, my right leg, if I bring that knee higher and I bring his arm to my right hip, the braking power, the fulcrum now is raised by my knee. You have tremendous braking power there. And he went over the hip, but he didn't pinch his knees. He didn't raise his fulcrum. Instead, he opted out to even widen his hips more. He even widened his knees more. And then upad from there. He brought his hips up, and that's the way he went for the armbar. And it was interesting to not see him pinch his knees. Another person that does their armbar like this is Ronda Rousey. She also didn't pinch her knees. She always kept her ankles crossed. Some people do that because they believe being able to flare their knees doesn't allow them to come up again. It doesn't allow them to move as much. So I guess you kind of choose between that or a stronger breaking point. Um, for me, I like a stronger breaking point because I can also figure for my legs depending on how they move. And for the most part, if you're bringing the hand over the hip, you don't really need to worry about corkscrew escapes or them coming up. It's a done deal. It's a done deal at that point. The arm's gonna break. So that's just the way I like to do arm bars, and it's very similar to the way Verdoom did his arm bar. That's the way I teach it. I have a very pretty complex system of how I teach arm bars. Arm bars are probably one of my favorite submissions. So it's I think the armbar is super important to learn. I think it should be a foundation to everybody's jiu-jitsu. I think an armbar teaches so many things. Just a closed guard armbar, a basic closed guard regular armbar that probably won't work after third degree white belt. I think it's important to learn it because it's going to help you understand the triangle and the kimura and sweeps later on because what an armbar has, it has wrist control, posture control, angles, fulcrums, leg curls, keeping tight with your legs, pinching your knees, rotation of your body. It has so many different elements to it, and I think teaching arm bars in pretty beginning, early on in your jiu-jitsu career, I think it's very beneficial, and I teach arm bars pretty early on, and I really bring up a lot of principles there, like 90-degree principles. You want a 45-degree or less between your knee and your head. There's just a lot to go on there. And again, I could make a whole breakdown on arm bars and breaking down a bunch of people's arm bars. I think right now I've been teaching arm bars a lot, so I'm really even extra in love with arm bars. So yeah, if you guys want to learn some arm bars, let me know, comment, and I'll definitely go over some arm bars. Mauricio Hua versus Little Nog. This is like watching like 2002 MMA. I wasn't happy seeing that. I didn't think it needed to happen. Seeing Little Nog's face after he lost, he just kept wincing. He just kept wincing, and you could just see. Go back and look at that. Look at Little Nog's face. He looked so broken. Like, I can't believe this is my last fight, and I'm exhausted. I don't want to do this anymore. You see it in his face. Like, he's so done with the fighting. He's so done with the journey. He's just so done. And he lost. And he's like, shit. Like, he's there thinking, do I have to do this again? Do I have to go out on a win? Like, do I still have to? Like, is this really happening? You just see it, and it sucks. It wasn't good. The fight wasn't good. It it just didn't need to happen. Now for the main event, Robert Whittaker and Darren Tillman. These guys have like a pretty big following, and I can kind of see why. I'm a fan of both guys. I'm just not the biggest fan. I like Darren Till. I like his like brash personality at times and how he can be pretty aggressive. I think it's entertaining. His fighting style is pretty cool. He has really weird feints, and I'm gonna get into that. Robert Whittaker, he's a sweetheart of a guy, but man, he just doesn't. Man, I don't know if this is gonna upset some people, but he's just not someone I particularly like study or anything. I don't think he really has much. Yeah, I don't think he has much there, and I know that's crazy because he was a long-time reigning champion and he beat Yoel and everything, which I think also Yoel has atrocious fight IQ. Yoel has probably he's up there having one of the worst fight IQs. He's one of the most gifted fighters with the worst fight IQ. It's pretty crazy. And so yeah, their fights to me were weird. And yeah, so Darren Till has, like I said, weird feints. He does this thing where he like hops and he just kind of puts his hands up, but his feints don't really match his strikes that well, but he gets it done. For example, when you saw Darren Till fight Wonder Boy, which I forgot who told me to watch that fight, but I was watching that fight, and Darren Till was just feinting on Wonder Boy, and Wonder Boy was eating up all those feints, which is crazy because Wonder Boy is good at feinting and he has great distance management. And you would think he wouldn't eat up on every feint, but he did. So there's something I think to that. The only thing is Darren Till, he doesn't set up. Again, it's just me. He has a good jab at times, but for the most part, he doesn't have the best setups for his strikes. He strikes very naked at times. There's a lot of fluff with very little movement when he does strike. Um, he he has great awareness of where he's at in the fight in terms of distance management. He knows where he's at, and especially against Robert Whittaker, Robert was just hitting air a lot, and Darren Till never capitalized on it. And that's the difference between Darren Till's left hand and, let's say, Connor's left hand. Connor just, if you swing at air once, he's countering you. He's there on you. Same thing, I remember Anderson Silva was pretty good at that. There's a lot of good counter fighters. Machida's great at that. He's so good at when you strike, he knows when you're going to strike. So he intercepts a strike. And you guys know I love intercepting strikes more than anything. Because I believe a good counter striker can do a lot of intercepting. I believe if you're a good fighter, intercepting is your best tool because, okay, what Darren Till does really well is avoid strikes, right? He can move his head out of the way, he can back out, not be anywhere near your strike, which is a really good strategy to have, to not be there for strikes. It's better than just blocking. It's way better. In MMA, you shouldn't be blocking a lot with your arms because you're just a stationary target for double legs, single legs, being pressed up against the cage, kicks, combinations through the gloves because they're super small gloves. Blocking is your last scenario, right? First scenario, most likely, to me, it's intercepting, but a good defensive maneuver is to get out of the way, as in move your feet. Darren Till was doing that, moving his feet, moving his head, moving the trunk of his body. He was doing that really well. And the only thing is that with intercepting, it's not just the ability to move out of the way. It's instead of just moving out of the way, you beat them to the punch. And that's when you really catch people. You see, Machida was really good at doing this. Machida didn't have a good lead attacks, which became a problem for him because then he was able to get countered. But what he did really well, you look at him against Ryan Bader, you look at him do it against a million guys. He caught John Jones with it. Being able to, when the opponent is thinking about striking, when their eyes do a flicker, when their finger moves, when they breathe in a pattern that they're ready for attack, and you hit them, it's like you're reading their mind. To me, that is a good striker. That's somebody that can read their opponent and prevent not only damage to themselves, but then create damage at the same time. And Darren Till, he did it with an elbow and really got Robert Whittaker with it. But if he can move out of the way that much, all he needs to do, if he can see it that many times in a row, that means he could definitely hit. That means he could definitely hit before they moved. You see him moving back before they hit. You see him moving his head before before they strike. You see him moving before they strike. You see him moving his head before they strike. You see him blocking before they strike. Way before. He's great at reading the feints, and when there are strikes and feints, he's really good at it. But he can't seem to get a good intercepting strike in there. He's not able to get really good counters in there. And I think that's what he needs. I think he needs to really implement more counters and more interception. And I think that would really change his game up a lot. I think if he, instead of being defensive minded and then attack minded, if he could do both at the same time, I think that would be huge for his game. And yeah, one thing, it was crazy because I thought the way Robert Whittaker just bends on the hip, and just puts his head down and swings with wide shots. I don't know how Darren Till wasn't able to just counter him, because it's easier said than done. There's a lot of feinting going on, a lot of legs, knee stomps. The knee stomps was big because today it just came out that Darren Till tore his MCL, so he's going to be in a cast for 6 weeks. That sucks. It's rough, but though that can take a toll on you, but it doesn't stop your hands from moving, right? Yeah, your leg is messed up, but your hands, they don't stop moving. And even though his leg was messed up, he was moving his legs more than he was moving his hands, unless he was fainting. But actually throwing strikes, he just needs to commit. And there's drills to do for this. And I do these drills a lot. You got to be able to attack once you see an opening. You just got to. You got to trust it. And he needs to work on that. Robert Whittaker again. He throws these leaning, weird hooks, and his kicks come from really weird angles. Also, he throws a lot of calf kicks, a lot of knee stomps, and it's funny how Darren Till was like, "Yeah, Wonder Boy was right. We should totally make this movie legal." It's funny when it's on your end, you don't like it. Um, and yeah, I go back and forth with this one. I think it's a great strike. The that that Mike Wicklejohn style, like stomping on the knee type of strike. I think it's a really good one, but at the same time, like, it's good for measuring distance and everything and keeping them at bay. But it's when you got big athletic guys like Yoel and Robert Whittaker and Darren Till just kicking your kneecap, it's rough. Like, those guys are big, and your knee can only handle so much downward pressure like that. And so I go back and forth. I like the strike, but at the same time, I see the dangers of it, so maybe it's not the best. Robert Whittaker did a great job at. Before I get to that, Robert Whittaker was doing this thing where he would go for snatch singles, like he would just grab a single and just pop up for strikes, like over the shoulder, and that was cool. That was interesting. He was doing a lot of little tricks like that, like the snatch single. It's a big one. He was going for this really wide roundhouse kick, and then no, he was going for this really wide, like, overhand, and then he would follow it with a really wide telegraphed kick. Like, they were both really wide telegraphed shots, and they were so ugly. No offense, but they were nowhere near target. It's like, I don't know what he was thinking. And the snatch single to popping up to strikes was a good one. Robert Whittaker did what Volkanovski did. He did a super veteran move and just held Darren Till the last minute or two. That's a super smart move to do. When that last minute comes around, especially the last 30 seconds, that, especially a guy like Darren Till, he's going to come at you. He's going to come at you aggressively. And he was like, nope, I'm just going to pressure you against the cage. I'm going to take you down. Here comes the wrestling. And he just kept going for these cool body lock trips. And he secured the round that way. The second he did that, I'm like, he won the fight. And it was smart of him to secure the round that way and secure the fight that way. It was a super veteran move. And yeah, I think it was smart. And I remember this was actually when GSP was in his prime. I remember this was actually a strategy a lot of fighters were using at the end of the round or end of the fight, especially end of the round. You saw a lot of double legs or pushing up against the cage and taking the round, and you stop seeing people do that, which I don't know why. It's such a smart strategy to, at the end of the round, put them on their back or to have them pressed against the cage. You're essentially giving yourself a free round, free points at least. I think it's a smart thing, and if I was a coach, I would definitely tell my students or my fighters to implement that. I think it's a good strategy, regardless of who you are as a fighter. I think it's a smart strategy to go for a takedown at the end of the round or to press them up against the cage. It really solidifies the round for you, especially at the end of the fight. And Darren Till did something crazy. He said that the fight with Adesanya would be easier than Darren Till. I mean, than Whittaker. because he felt like Whittaker mixes things up, and that's why he lost. Compared to Adesanya, where Adesanya doesn't mix things up. I don't think that's true, but okay. And also, I think Adesanya is a completely different level of striker compared to Whittaker. We saw it already. Whittaker got pieced up by Adesanya, like if Whittaker has never thrown any strikes in his life. And I don't see it being. I see it being different with Darren Till, but I don't see it being that much different to the point where Darren Till is gonna walk through Adesanya or even beat him. I really don't see that happening. And I think Adesanya has a different level of striking. He has way more refined tools, not only more tools, but more refined tools. And he has a better clinching game. And I don't think he just can weigh on him and just feint all day, especially against Arasana, the king of feints. Like, Arasanya's whole camp is revolved around feints and how they set up intricate feints, and I don't think he's going to fall for Darren Till's hoppy feints, or at least it be a problem. Now, let's talk about the whole Dan Hardy and Herb Dean thing. Man, this is okay. If you want a great breakdown on this, I'm probably not the best guy. Probably the best breakdown on this that I've heard so far. I haven't heard many, so I don't know. But to me, Luke Thomas's breakdown was amazing on this. It's a little more aggressive because Luke Thomas is a little more aggressive about things, and he's been in the media for a long time, so he obviously has experience already with this. He's been through a lot of bullshit when it comes to MMA and regulations, like, like everybody else in the media. But so Dan Hardy was totally wrong yelling, right? In a professional, perfect world, he was totally wrong for yelling. You cannot yell at the referee to stop the fight. That's not your job, and that's totally confusing the ref. That's making them do decisions that they normally wouldn't do, whether it's right or wrong decisions. It's not your job to have your opinion out there. It's not your say. That's not your job. It's not your job. Now, I'm not talking about if it's a good stoppage or not, or Dan Hardy was in the right or the wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying Dan Hardy, in a perfect world, shouldn't be doing that. That Herb Dean made a great analogy. It's like you having someone having a bullhorn, like the round was ending, and they press the bullhorn. You're gonna totally just stop fighting, thinking the round has ended, or maybe someone claps and does the 10 second, that 10 seconds are left. It's gonna mess you up, and I totally see Herb Dean's side, and he's so articulate with the way he talks, and even and calm, and he gives really good points, but he's wrong. He's wrong. In my opinion, he's wrong. He's wrong because he said that I forgot the dude's name. That was I think Herbert, the guy that was on the floor when Ronaldo hit him. Herb said that his eyes were still tracking Ronaldo, and that he was defending. He had one leg up, one hand up, and his head was off the ground. Look, for 3 seconds, Herbert didn't move. He didn't get his guard back. If you train a lick of jiu-jitsu, you would know that you right away start shrimping and putting your foot on the hip. You face them right away. You do something. These fighters, they've been fighting for a long time. They've been training for a long time. He would be coming up to a single. He would be putting his feet between them. Putting your leg up and your arm up, especially the way that he did, which was in a technical sense, it didn't make sense. His hips were facing the wrong direction. If you train jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean. That it doesn't make any sense. Like, you don't shrimp facing into your facing away from your partner. You shrimp looking at your partner. You get your hips out and you put your feet between you and your partner or your opponent. He didn't do that. His hips were facing the wrong direction. He was not defending himself properly, and he didn't continue to do so. That wasn't proper technique. That was just he was out of it. And the extra shots didn't need to happen. And Luke Thomas brought this up really well. He brought up a good point, and he said, what else can Dan Hardy do? What else can anybody do but yell and make a scene? Because no one's going to listen. Try to go to the commission and make a complaint. Go to the commission and try to get something done. Try to talk to UFC about changes like the fucking gloves. The gloves are they're breaking people's hands left and right. Left and right. And the money, and what's his name? Trevor Whitman has a great product, but obviously Trevor Whitman's like, I'm not going to give it to you for free. You can use my product. I can make it for you, but I'm not going to give you the whole how to make it. I'm not going to give you the rights to my creation. I'm not going to give you the what is it called? The I'm going blank with this word. It's the word when the paper of you own the creation, the invention. It's not copyright. It's the other thing. Whatever. Okay. They want to take the whole product for themselves, and that's it. And Trevor Whitman's like, no, I will do it for you. Just let me get a cut, And of course the UFC is not going to do that. They want all the money they can, and they're only going to fix the sport for only extreme benefits for themselves. That's it. They're not going to do anything to help the fighters only. There has to be an extreme interest. I'm talking about extreme interest for themselves because it's not of good interest to have their fighters break their hands. It's not. It's the dumbest thing. So it's not of their benefit to have their hands being broken, to have their fighters being broken. Makes no sense. But they can't just help the fighters and then kind of help themselves in that sense. There needs to be like a clear cut, I make the money, I make the rules, this is our product, we did this is us. That's the only way they do things. There is no compromising with them, there is no middle ground with them. So what else can Dan Hardy do at that point? If the commission doesn't listen, Herb Dean, I think that was his second bad stoppage of the fight, and he has a history of doing this. Now, he's a better referee than most, but there's no regulations to any of this shit. It's a gray area everywhere. This sport is one big gray area, which is cool because then you can kind of rig it in certain ways, and you can kind of evolve it in ways that, like, technique and fighters evolve in weird ways at times because the rules are so arbitrary. But at the same time, we need things to be more organized, and this is the only way we can do it right now is just lashing out and yelling because they're not listening any other way. So even though I think, yes, Dan Hardy is completely wrong in yelling and being unprofessional, I don't think he should do that. But at the same time, what else is he going to do? What else is he going to do? So that's my opinion on that. And if you want to have a better, more articulated opinion on that, go to Luke Thomas and listen to him. So this episode went way longer than I thought it was going to be. It's 48 minutes essentially, and it's way longer than I thought. So if you got here this far, again, here goes a social experiment. Put a thumbs up. That would be cool. And yeah, again, I want to thank the people that messaged me and told me that I should keep going and that this should be something I should keep doing and don't let it get to me or whatever, whatnot. And that's what I'm doing. It's late, but it's better late than never, and I'm so happy to be doing this podcast right now. I'm, I guess you could say, proud of myself for getting out of the rut that I was in and getting this podcast out there, and I hope you got this far. I hope you enjoyed the product, and I don't think I gotta go teach a private right now, so I won't have time to do a better thumbnail, but I'm going to be doing a better thumbnails from now on. I'm going to do custom thumbnails for every single episode, and I'm going to have an intro coming soon, and I'm going to be doing some other things. So let me know if you guys have any other things I want to go over, or you want me to do anything, you want me to talk about anything, make a video on something, and I'm totally down for that. So yeah, we're at 50 minutes. It would be crazy if someone listened to it this far. It would be pretty awesome. And thank you guys. I appreciate you guys. For anybody that's been listening, I appreciate it. You have no idea. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Have a great, awesome weekend. And I'll be talking to you guys next week. Love you guys. Take care.